There is an unwritten rule in the Appalachian Mountains, a rule older than most towns, older than many of the roads that wind through those endless forests. It is a rule passed from grandparents to parents and from parents to children, a rule spoken quietly around campfires and hunting cabins. If you hear your name being called from the woods, don't answer. Not because you might get lost, not because someone is trying to trick you, but because whatever is calling your name may not be human, and once you answer, it knows where you are. The Appalachian Mountains stretch across thousands of miles of wilderness. Ancient forests blanket the hillsides. Fog creeps through valleys before sunrise. Entire communities have lived there for generations, surrounded by forests so dense that sunlight struggles to reach the ground. For centuries, people have shared stories about strange sounds coming from those woods. Voices, whispers, names spoken from somewhere deep among the trees. Most dismiss them as superstition, but those who grew up in Appalachia often tell a different story, because some warnings survive for a reason. And tonight, we enter one of the most disturbing legends ever whispered through the mountains. The story of the thing that waits in the forest, the thing that knows your voice, the thing that only needs one answer. Entity 1, the first whisper. The story often begins with a single sound: a hunter walking alone through the forest, a hiker taking a shortcut before sunset, a camper gathering firewood away from camp. The setting changes, but the first whisper is always the same, a voice quietly calling a name. At first, it sounds distant, almost impossible to hear. The person usually stops walking. They look around. Nothing. Only trees. Only wind. Only silence. Then it comes again, this time a little closer, a little clearer. The voice sounds familiar, comforting, like someone they know, someone they trust. One old Appalachian story tells of a hunter who heard his name called while tracking deer through a fog-covered valley. He immediately recognized the voice. It belonged to his grandfather. The problem was that his grandfather had died more than a decade earlier. The hunter stood frozen, listening. The voice called again, gentle, patient, almost inviting. He never answered. Years later, he would say that refusing to answer was the smartest decision he ever made, because the voice followed him all the way home. Entity 2, the voice between trees. People who hear the whispers often notice the same strange detail. The voice never sounds threatening. It never screams. It never demands. Instead, it sounds exactly like someone you would willingly follow. A mother calling her child, a friend asking for help, a spouse looking for their partner. The voice knows exactly how to sound trustworthy. Locals say that's because it studies people. It listens, it learns, it remembers, and once it knows someone well enough, it begins using those voices. Some survivors claim the sound never comes from one location. It moves. One moment it's ahead, the next it's behind, then somewhere off to the side, always just beyond sight, always encouraging the listener to walk a little farther, one more step, one more turn, one more path into the darkness, and every step makes it harder to find the way back. Entity 3, the Watcher. Long before the stories of missing hikers and strange voices, there were stories about something older, something the mountain people called the Watcher. Nobody agrees on what it looks like. Some describe a tall shadow moving between trees. Others report a shape too large to be human. Many never see a body at all, only the feeling, a powerful sensation that something is observing them from the darkness, watching every movement, studying every decision, waiting.
Unlike predators, the watcher does not rush, it does not chase, it does not attack. Patience is its greatest weapon. It simply waits for people to make the mistake themselves. Some hunters describe sitting alone in tree stands for hours, suddenly feeling as though someone was standing directly behind them. Yet whenever they turned around, nothing was there. Nothing except the overwhelming certainty that they were no longer alone. Entity 5, the mimic. Eventually, the stories evolved. People stopped talking about the watcher. Instead, they began talking about something even more disturbing, the mimic. According to the legend, whatever lives in the woods learned a simple truth about human beings. People trust familiar voices, so it learned to copy them perfectly. Every laugh, every accent, every tiny detail. The mimic doesn't need to look human, it only needs to sound human. There are stories of campers hearing their friends calling for help from deep within the forest, only to discover their friend was safely asleep back at camp. Others claim they heard their own voices speaking from the darkness, repeating words they had spoken earlier that day, like an echo, except echoes don't learn, and echoes don't call your name. Entity 5, the lost trail. Deep within Appalachia are trails that do not appear on maps, at least not consistently. Locals call them lost trails. People report discovering paths that shouldn't exist, paths that seem familiar despite never having been seen before. The trails always appear inviting, easy to follow, almost welcoming, but once someone begins walking them, strange things happen. Distances become distorted, landmarks disappear, time feels wrong. Hours pass like minutes, minutes pass like hours, and no matter which direction someone turns, the trail somehow continues deeper into the wilderness. Some believe these trails are not physical locations at all, but traps designed to separate travelers from everything familiar, including reality itself.
Search and rescue teams occasionally discover scenes that defy explanation. Abandoned campsites, still active, still warm, still occupied by evidence of recent life. Campfires continue burning, food remains untouched, clothing lies neatly folded, backpacks remain packed, everything appears normal, except for the people. They are gone. No signs of struggle, no blood, no evidence of predators, just absence. Sometimes investigators discover footprints leading away from camp, a single set, walking calmly into the forest, as if the missing person willingly followed something into the darkness and never returned. Among all Appalachian stories, one image appears more often than any other: the eyes. Witnesses describe two pale lights floating between trees, not glowing brightly, just enough to be seen, just enough to be noticed. The eyes never blink, never move, they simply watch. People who encounter them often report an overwhelming sense of dread. Not fear, not panic, something deeper, something ancient, as though a forgotten part of the human brain instantly recognizes a danger older than civilization itself and desperately wants to escape. Not everyone who disappears stays missing forever. Some come back, days later, weeks later, sometimes even years later, but the stories surrounding them are deeply unsettling. Family members often insist something has changed. The returned person remembers events incorrectly, forgets important memories, acts strangely, behaves like a stranger wearing a familiar face. One Appalachian legend tells of a man who vanished for 6 days. When rescuers found him, he appeared unharmed, yet he could not remember his wife's name, or his children's birthdays, or where he had been. The only thing he remembered was hearing someone call his name from the woods.
According to the legend, every victim eventually hears the same question. The question always arrives when they are alone, usually at night, usually when the forest is completely silent. The voice whispers gently, almost kindly, "Can you hear me?" Most people ignore it, some run, but a few answer. And according to Appalachian folklore, that is the moment everything changes. Because the creature doesn't need permission to approach, it only needs acknowledgement. The answer confirms the connection. The answer opens the door. The answer tells it exactly who you are.
Entity number 10. The thing that learned your name. The final truth is the most terrifying of all. The creature doesn't collect bodies, it collects names. Every voice it steals becomes another disguise, another tool, another lure. It remembers every name it hears, every person who answers, every victim who follows. And once it learns your name, it never forgets. Years may pass, decades may pass, but somewhere in the endless Appalachian wilderness, something still remembers you, waiting, listening, patiently calling into the darkness. The strangest part of this legend is not that people disappear. People disappear everywhere. The strangest part is how similar the stories are. Different states, different forests, different generations, yet the warning never changes. Don't answer the voice, don't follow the whisper, don't acknowledge what calls your name. Because perhaps there was never only one creature. Perhaps something has always existed in the deep forests of America. Something that has spent centuries learning human voices, learning human behavior, learning human names. And perhaps while you've been listening to this story, it has been listening to you. Tonight, before you go to sleep, think carefully. Have you ever heard your name called when nobody was there? Have you ever turned round because you were certain someone was behind you? Have you ever felt watched while standing alone in the woods? If you have, maybe it wasn't your imagination. If you enjoyed this journey into forgotten folklore, mysterious creatures, and dark legends hidden within the Appalachian wilderness, subscribe and continue deeper into the world of whispered shadows, because some stories are meant to entertain, and some stories are warnings. Until next time, if you hear your name coming from the darkness, don't answer.
Whispered Shadows.